Hello, I'm Calvin Morris and I'm here today to talk about Doctor Who Before the Flood. Now this is a spoiler heavy review, so if you haven't seen the episode then don't watch this because this will spoil the crap out of it for you. That being said, if you have seen it and you want to know what I think, then sit back, relax, put your feet up and let's talk about the good, the bad, what I liked, what I didn't. Let's review Doctor Who. So the titles end and the Doctor's back in the year 1980 in an abandoned military training facility, and for me personally this was a clever idea. This is a clever move. To say that it's an abandoned military training ground means that portraying the year 1980 doesn't really need that much. You just say it's abandoned, it's abandoned. I would have liked them to have thrown in something like a burnt out, Mark 1 Fiesta or Ford Escort or something like that, just to sort of sell 1980 a little bit more. But really and truly, I mean, this worked for it. It would be like saying, oh, it's 1980, but it's in the middle of a forest. A forest looks like a forest no matter where. So yeah, we had Bennett as well, feeling time sick. We only ever get that reference once in a while. It doesn't happen all the time. You've got to go back like sort of, I think, 40 years since it happened last, I think. So it's nice that that's sort of brought back up. It's a touch of continuity that sometimes people come out of the TARDIS and they feel like they're going to throw up. So the story starts moving on and we're introduced to the flesh and body version of Prentice, which is played by Paul Kaye. Paul Kaye you'll probably know from Game of Thrones or Dracula Untold, or if you want to go back far enough, he used to be called Dennis Pennis. He's really changed his repertoire over the years, hasn't he? Do you know what? I liked his portrayal. I thought that he was adding to what David Walliams did when he played that sort of character. I can't remember the character's name. It's in there somewhere, but I can't remember. It'll rattle out at some point. Yeah, I felt that he was just really adding to the character. The only problem was there were times when he turned and looked at the camera, and I swear hell it was Daniel Craig. It's probably the eyes, those sort of piercing blue eyes. So the plot is then dealing with the Doctor being back in time to see what actually happened, and later on in the episode you'll find out that they get time locked, that the TARDIS won't let them leave. So they get stuck in a time loop and they have to wait for time to sort of play out. And when that happens, the Doctor and Bennett are behind a set of bins and they duck and they bang the bins, and O'Donnell looks over at them in their direction. Now I went back and rewatched the episode, and during that moment, first of all you can hear the bins clang and O'Donnell does look over in that direction. So great direction coming out of this episode. People are really thinking sort of Back to the Future 2 kind of mentality. It must have cooked their noodle on anyone who was making this episode. They must have really sort of had headache after headache just sort of trying to work out how you deal with this paradox. So the town that they essentially were supposed to be in, this abandoned town, it was obvious, I think, in places that you could notice that they'd added certain extensions onto buildings. My guess would be that it wasn't probably a set choice, that it was probably a safety issue. They probably had to add sort of like that sort of front section to the church on, because you probably weren't allowed to go inside the buildings. They looked pretty condemned. I mean, they're supposed to. That's the point. They were supposed to look like rundown buildings. But my point is that those extensions that they put onto the buildings probably weren't necessary for telling the story or anything like that. It was probably a health and safety issue. But they seemed to be fairly effective. We barely noticed that they stood out from the building a little bit. It was just like sort of colour variation, but they did a damn good job of making it integrated, and you barely noticed it. And again, it was the same with the visual effects. The visual effects in this were looking pretty damn good. you could believe that they were in the middle of Scotland. They'd added in all the mountain range behind, and they added in the dam and stuff like that. So especially when the dam breaks as well, damn good, pun intended, visual effects there. And we're dealing with obviously, like, the Fisher King is trying to survive. Now, I'm interested in the fact that they decided to go with a character and call him the Fisher King, because the Fisher King to me was a character out of Arthurian legend who was charged with protecting the Holy Grail, if I'm right. That's where I believe the term Fisher King comes from. He was sort of paralysed in the legs, couldn't move, and everybody else had to do things for him. I guess that's probably why they went with it for the story, because the Fisher King couldn't really call people there. He had to get other people to call him for him. So maybe that's why they went with it. That would be a guess. I like the design of the character, by the way. I thought that in silhouette it had a striking shape, and there was this towering mass. I liked it when it was in darkness a bit more than when I saw it in daylight. When I saw it in daylight, yes, it had some beautiful airbrush into it, and some the colours that they chose was really nice. And I'm a big fan of a show called Face Off, so I sort of can appreciate it from that sort of standpoint. But when you got out into daylight, maybe I was expecting to overlay some sort of effect over it, some sort of turbulent displace or something to help it tie in with the apparitions, but it didn't do anything for it. Seeing too much of it, it didn't knock me down a little bit, but it's like in Alien, when you see the alien from Aliens, when you see the xenomorph, it's not as effective as what it was in the first movie when it was always kept in shadows. It's not really a huge issue, but I mean, I like the mandibles that had a bit of movement there, and I like those bladders undulating. So all that sort of stuff I thought was really nice. And of course, Fisher King voiced by Peter Serafinowicz, who, you know, if you don't know, was in Guardians of the Galaxy and Spy. And again, he is hot right now at this moment. He is absolutely doing anything and everything to keep himself busy, and why not? Great one. So with the paradox going on in the story, Clara's running around the base. The Doctor is a ghost, and he's mouthing words, but he's not mouthing the same words as the other ghosts were. He is giving names. Now this leads to the overall paradox in the story, which is why the Doctor was explaining at the start with the Bootstrap Paradox, which is something that I thought was interesting, because they'd done the previously on, and then the Doctor breaks the fourth wall and talks directly to the audience, and I thought that was a bit of an unusual move. And he's explaining the Bootstrap Paradox. But I tend to think Doctor Who fans are a little bit smarter than that, and I'm not really sure you needed to explain the in and outs of the Bootstrap Paradox. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm wrong, but I didn't feel that it was necessary. But of course, you get the whole part where he picks up the guitar and starts strumming away, and that rocks right the way through the title sequence. But yeah, the Doctor is explaining that part where he's explaining the paradox. I felt was just not necessary. But again, we get into the paradox of the story where Clara is seeing the ghost of the Doctor, and he's mouthing different words. He's mouthing the names of the characters of people who are gonna die. But it's a little bit complex to try to review this, because there's a lot of stuff going on that happens again. If you watch the show the second time round, it's a little bit easier, because like I said, there's a lot of stuff happening. Very smart choice for this show, and it has set a bar. I will say that this episode has set a bar. They have to sort of live up to this episode now. The only thing that I would really say that I'm still not fond on is those damn sonic glasses. I really am not sold on those now. Before, when they were sonic glasses, it was sort of, okay, they can do little things, now they can do anything and everything. They can make holograms, they can deprogram people, it's a sonic device, you know. Stop it, this isn't the be all end all fix. You know, maybe the Doctor couldn't, you know, there are these points in the story where you kind of just go, you shouldn't be able to fix everything. The Doctor shouldn't be able to fix everything. And for me personally, I would have liked the people to actually, you'd say, look, you're going to survive this, but you're going to have nightmares and you're going to suffer and you're going to have these problems, and I'm really, really sorry about that, but at least you'll be alive. And to me, I think that would be better than him just putting the glasses on and saying, hey, look, you're all fixed. Now, the other thing that I did really like in this episode was Cass. I thought the first time when I saw Cass walking through the corridor by herself and she was being chased by one of the ghosts dragging an axe, the first time I saw her I thought, you know, if I was filming this, I would do it from her point of view and I would cut the sound, just, you know, not have it. And of course later on that exact situation happens, so I can't give him, I've got to give him like 10 out of 10 for that, because that is what I would have done. If I was directing that episode, that is exactly how I would have played it. So I thought that was just brilliant. First of all, I thought it was a missed opportunity, and then when they do it where she puts her hand on the floor, I thought, yeah, that's great. That is just fantastic. It was a bit daredevil-y, you know, if you remember the film with Ben Affleck, unfortunately. But the interesting effect, but yeah, that's exactly what I would have done, and I got to give him pluses on that. So we get to the end of the episode and the Fisher King has been destroyed because the dam had been blown up by the Doctor. It turns out it was him that took the power cell to begin with, and it was him inside the thing, and it turned out that his dead ghost was a hologram, blah de blah de blah. We get to the end of the episode and he explains the Bootstrap Paradox. He also explained it at the start of the episode. Now, is that a paradox in and of itself? No, it's not. They just didn't need to explain it either at the start or at the end. They could have just explained it at the start or at the end, but they didn't need to do both. So, and given that I really liked the beginning when he was talking to us, by explaining it at the end, he made the opening monologue totally unnecessary. So what do I think of this episode overall? Well, all round, after the story's all played out, like I said, they've set a bar. There were things I didn't like. There were things that I didn't like. I said, seeing the Fisher King in broad daylight, done nothing, too much information there on screen, and something out of his character didn't look as menacing. It looked a little bit ridiculous. But when you seen it in silhouette, it looked stunning when you seen it in darkness, and that's the way I would have kept it. So I'm going to take points off for that because you didn't need it. But the story wise, you know what, it done a damn good job. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Like I said, set a bar. I thought that if the rest of the series carries on like this, we're going to have a damn good run. So that's my thoughts on this episode of Doctor Who. Do you like the sonic glasses? I've got to ask, because really, I was on the fence, but now these things do way too much. They like the sonic screwdriver. They be all end all answer to everything. It's up to you. Either you like them or you don't. Me personally, I was on the fence. Now I'm in the don't category. I don't like them at all. What do you think of the Doctor being the rock star? Okay, I mean, we've had different versions of the Doctor before, you know, where we've had the clown, we've had the dandy, we've had the frantic manic, and now we've got the rock star. What do you think of this take on the character? Do you think Peter Capaldi has finally found his place? Are you happy to see this come out of the Doctor? And what do you think of the episode overall? Let me know in the comments below, and see you next week when I'll be reviewing next week's episode of Doctor Who. See you later, guys.